Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 127. Joining me, as always, is
Trace Trylko. Hello, everyone.
Knightline 127 is brought to you by the Dever Team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636, 386-690-1636.
UCF gets a strong road win, 31-21 at Navy to move to 6-0 bowl eligibility, baby. We have it covered. We're joined by our football analysts, Kyle Israel and Nick Patty. Juan Toribio of Knights 24/7 stops by to talk recruiting, and of course we're answering your questions during Ask Knightline. But first,
that is right. You can put your mind at ease. UCF not only wins, but moves up to 17th in the coaches poll and 18th in the AP poll. And we have celebrated our busiest Knightline post-game live yet. Lots of calls, plenty to talk about UCF's big win at Navy, and 6-0, baby. 6-0.
were the Village people a part of Knightline post-game live?
They could have been. We had enough calls that
I know. I waited on hold. While I dialed in from Annapolis.
You know, this has, I guess, needs to be addressed. Yes, we had lots of calls, and I apologize that I could not get to everybody.
It's a good problem.
It's not a bad problem, absolutely. It is a good problem. But here's the deal with the call queue, and I tried to explain it. I probably should have explained this a lot sooner than now, but there is a call queue. So when you call, you are put in a line, and you won't get hung up on if you hang on in there. You don't want to hang up. So it gives me the calls in the order they were received. So if you're the first one to call, you're on hold forever. If you call even before the show starts, you're first, and you're put in that line, and you're in the order received. So don't hang up once you call. Don't call over and over again. If you hang up and call again, you're going to be all the way at the back of the line.
And then you might get frustrated going, well, why don't they ever take my call? And
exactly.
They were next up.
And I want to take everybody's call, obviously. And the more calls, the better. And thank you for everybody who participates in that and comes and says hello and all that stuff. I really appreciate it. It's a blast to do. I'm getting tired. This is probably the first football season ever in my lifetime that I'm kind of wishing it to be over.
Stop that.
To be honest with you.
Stop that.
I'm tired. This takes my entire weekend.
That's true.
So
that's true.
One of these days I'm going to.
But you're back at it.
I finally got my yard mowed today after about 3 weeks of not mowing my yard. So
back at it Saturday after Austin P.
Absolutely.
30 minutes after.
Yep, at Burger U. And I was at Burger U this week. We're going to do the away games there now, too. So we will do that from Burger U. We need people to stop by and come out there. They have awesome food at Burger U. It wouldn't be called Burger U if it wasn't all about the burgers. But they have a massive selection of beer and a full bar. So it's a good time. I had a great time just sitting there watching the game. The place was crowded. The rugby team came in after a little while.
The rugby team? Oh, that's why you messaged me that the rugby team had won.
Yeah, because I talked to one of the rugby players, and I was like, hey, because he was wearing his rugby kit, I guess they call that. Mm-hmm. And, obviously they had played, and they played FIU twice, I believe, and FIU's team and UCF's team came into Burger U, and they did a little catering thing in the corner for them, and so that was cool. There were players that were not traveling with the team that were injured or not traveling for some other reason that were there at Burger U as well, not drinking. Very cool, though. Very cool environment to watch a game. Tons of beer they have. Import, domestic, and some craft brew stuff, so very good. I sampled a few.
I gather I will be back with you. I was in Annapolis. A lot of Knight fans were in Annapolis. Had a Knight Nation takeover of the downtown. A lot of cool bars to go to and a great game day atmosphere. A lot of pageantry, a lot of tradition. Homecoming for Navy, so they welcome back several classes. And just a great time, and what an impressive win for UCF. They gutted out a victory, several key turning points in this game. It was a trench warfare kind of game. Navy got their yards. As we talked to Nick Patty, by the way, Nick, I listened to post-game live, and there were some questions on the message board about that. Yeah, it gets archived, so you can listen to it. I was on the 6:10 flight back, so I listened for an hour on the flight back.
I have to say this. I am very proud of Knight Nation, and we talked a lot about this on post-game live last night. I'm very proud of Knight Nation for handling the Navy game the way they did and not screaming Knights in the middle of the national anthem and all that stuff and all that.
Can I throw a contrary opinion your way?
Sure.
Isn't that our tradition?
But it's disrespectful at
So when Navy comes
academy
here next year, are we going to not do it then?
No, because I don't know about that. I don't know.
My only point is, if it's not respectful to do, then it's not respectful to do at any time. And if it's your tradition to do it, then you do it all the time.
Okay. I don't think it's respectful to do at a service academy. When it's in your house, you can do whatever you want, I think. But when you're in somebody else's house, especially a service academy, that's when I don't think that you should do it. I know that this was very debated on the message boards and Twitter and everything else, but I'm proud of not only the way that Knight Nation handled it, but by the way that Scott Frost and the whole team went over and did their alma mater
thing. That was great
thing.
At the end.
There's just, this is different. And it's hard to explain to people that don't understand as far as a service academy versus any other school. Service academy, all those players are going to be Navy members or Marines.
But you're sort of saying
and those
it's
people,
disrespectful.
I think it's disrespectful. I do.
So I think that's the bigger point in this discussion, is it a disrespectful thing to do at any time? I think that's the interesting part about it.
Yeah.
I posted a question saying on Twitter, will Knight Nation in attendance, well represented. A lot of fans were interested in this game. Obviously, back in that D.C., Virginia, Maryland area, a lot of alums, as we saw when we were up for the Maryland game. I posted, will they yell out Knights? And then when they didn't, I wrote, and they didn't. And UCF volleyball coach Todd Dagenet commented. Did you see his comment where he said a time and a place, and that wasn't the time or the place?
Right.
Again, you see it across all the sports. Even Coach Dagenet's volleyball team, when it gets to that point in the national anthem, you'll see the girls, the ladies, yell out Knights and put their hands up. So I think it's interesting that if it is our tradition, then that's what it is. And I'm not weighing in one way or another. I will say that I never yell it out, but I do like to hear it. I hear it, of course, at all the Orlando City games.
Okay.
The fans, I like to hear it. I don't yell it out. And that was what one of your callers said on Postgame Live.
Right. That was Stefan. That is a former, or I think he's still active duty military.
And he said he stands at attention.
Right.
He doesn't yell it out.
Right.
But
you can choose to do whatever you want. It's not like it's sitting down or kneeling or
well,
whatever.
that's
another
a whole
thing,
different.
And we're not going to talk about that on
the
show. I'm from Kansas City, and everybody knows that Kansas City, at the end of the national anthem, the home of the Chiefs.
Oh, well, that's really changing.
Everybody in the entire stadium yells Chiefs at the end of the national anthem. And the home of the Chiefs.
Now, I didn't know that. I knew they do it home of the Braves at Atlanta Braves games.
Yeah.
And they go O's at Baltimore Orioles games. I didn't know that the Chiefs did that.
Oh, it's huge. It is one of the most mesmerizing things, I think, if you're there, because everybody does. It's huge to hear 80,000 people do that at the same time, yell Chiefs at the end. Honestly, I wish that instead of yelling it at Knights in the middle of the national anthem, I actually wish that we waited till the end and screamed Home of the Knights at the end. I would love to hear that happen.
I gather it's just going to be a 1-week reprieve. It will be back Saturday against Austin Peay.
I don't expect it to, but in my opinion, and we can, take that for whatever it is. We've gone on 10 minutes about this, but I think
Hey, about that game.
Yeah. Anyway, what a game. Incredible game.
Were you nervous?
I was definitely nervous.
Did you think it could tip the other way?
Absolutely.
They left points out on the field.
At any second.
They left points out of the field. When they were driving there with a 4th and 1, Coach Frost was thinking, let's deliver a punch here. Let's get up 14 points.
Right.
And that's why they go there, even though you'd say, boy, I wish I had that field goal.
At any second, I thought that it could go the other way.
Boy, they just pounded
it, and this was, this season I have not been worried. In fact, I've been the absolute opposite of worried. But this game, definitely. I was driving over to Burger U, and I was listening to the pregame, Mark Daniels and all those guys, and I was just sitting there going, wow, this could be 6-0, or this could be a major setback. And that was the team to do it, as far as I'm concerned, for the rest of the year. That was the team to do it. And they didn't. It's just Navy is such a oddball to play. They hadn't lost for 17 games in their stadium. That's a big deal right there.
They protect their house.
They protect their house. Those are, honestly, Power 5 players that are going to that school, and they've been independent for years. And the other thing is the mindset of those guys. Those guys are going to be our people that lead our military. So those guys have, I guess, a psychological advantage in a way, and they're bright people. They're not dumb football players, They're intelligent people, or they wouldn't have gotten into that academy. So they just have a different mindset. It's win in a totally different way than most football teams. All the service academies, those are totally different people you're going up against there.
And from UCF head coach Scott Frost to all of the players, there was a respect shown toward Navy. They were not intimidated.
Right. You shouldn't be intimidated, but
they were
you should be respectful. Absolutely. All right, so let's hear what Scott Frost had to say about that. And I did these clips a little bit different this week. We still have quite a few, but I made some longer ones. So
what do you call them? What do you call them? Mashups?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe I just put mashup on my
mashup.
Yeah, so it's just some quotes all in a row here.
I got so much admiration for Navy and this place and their football players and their staff. We knew we were in for a battle, and I was so impressed with them. My hat's off to them. We're glad and lucky to get out of here with a win. You get in a close game, you really need some heart. You need to play together. You need to have guys that are going to make plays when the game's on the line. And I thought we had some guys step up at very important times, and we got a couple plays that made the difference in the game, so it's good to see. I thought they did a good job on defense. They were mixing things up. They were really trying to plug up the middle. Some of our perimeter stuff went out the window, and McKenzie got a little tweaked, and I think they squeezed it down a little too much on that one, and AK found the edge and outran everybody. He's an eraser, and he erased a tie game and made it a 7-point lead again. I thought they did a good job of mixing things up. We should have scored. I give them a ton of credit, but we should have scored 4 or 5 times early in the game. And it was a penalty and then a bad snap and getting stopped on 4th and 1. We have to convert those things. That left them in the game, and then we were in for a battle. But defensively, I thought they did a great job mixing things up and stopping what we had for them. And I tip my hat to them. I didn't get to see much. I'd love to come back up and see campus and everything. But again, it's 17-game win streak at home. There's a reason that happens. And if you can walk out of here with a win, you got to be happy.
All right, so it seems like Scott Frost is happy about that. Like he said, 17-win, home streak there. And if you can walk out of there, you have to be happy. So with a win.
And of course, I asked him about the penalties. I really just scuttled one drive in that game where they left points on the field a couple of times. And you think about that, by the way, 31 points. Boy, could have hit 50.
Absolutely.
If you'd execute a little bit better. Missed field goal, stop 4th and 1. In the red zone, and then of course that drive with all the penalties. So
it's interesting that you say that you ask him about the penalties, because I have that question right here.
Oh, there we go.
Talk about the penalties. Correctable?
Yeah, going in, we've had too many penalties this year, and hopefully it's correctable. It's false starts and delay of games and holdings, and most of them, I think all of them in the first half on us were on offense, and we got to get that fixed. We can't keep putting ourselves behind the chains.
That was a conversation that we had last night on Post Game Live as well about the penalties. And I said I wasn't so concerned with them because they're not the pass interferences. They're not the personal foul type penalties.
I agree with you on that.
Would worry about more because the long penalties and, stuff like that. So.
I think it really on that one drive really impacted the drive. So I think they've got to clean that up, or it comes back to bite you somewhere.
Well, obviously he's, paying attention to it, and we'll see, I guess, because, you heard him right there say that they need to clean it up. So We'll see. I mean, I don't know how you do that, to be honest with you, in practice. I guess you hire a referee and have a referee out there. I don't know if they have referees during most practices or not, but I guess that would be one way to do it.
You know, Scott Frost named to both the 2017 Paul Bryant Coach of the Year Award and Dodd Trophy Coach of the Year watch lists during the week. So you keep racking up wins, you keep moving up in the polls. UCF, 1 of 8 unbeatens. Nobody lost. None of the unbeatens lost, so it's still 8.
Yeah, and Scott Frost has a baby coming very, very soon, too, so that could be interesting. We'll see how a baby changes him. I liked this quote. I cut one out that I really liked that Frost had to say. Let's hear that one real quick.
Sometimes you win and it's easy. Sometimes you have to battle. Sometimes it's not as pretty, but a win's a win. I love how this team kept fighting. I love how they're playing together right now, and the guys are excited.
All right, well, I liked that clip a lot just because it says that this team, and we've been talking about it for quite a while now, them being close together, and finally they, came against some adversity.
Yes, and they fought through it. They dealt with some setbacks, like Mackenzie Milton's interception, right? Could have been just a big turning point in the game.
Well, there could have been a lot of turning points in this game, and one of the things that we were worried about was when Mackenzie Milton kind of hobbled off there.
Oh, there's that too, yeah.
That was remember the GIF or GIF that I sent you on Facebook Messenger after that happened?
Was that the SpongeBob one?
Like chewing off his fingernails? Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was doing that. I was sitting at the bar, and I'm just like, oh, my God.
Funny how things have changed, though, by the way, that we get upset that Mackenzie may go out of the game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Same crowd of people that might have booed him a little.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, or last year, people were chanting for Holman to come in. And
at the bowl game.
We had no idea that this was going to happen, though. We had no idea. And we talked a little while ago to Nick Patty, and we've done our interviews, and I think we've been fairly transparent about how we do our interviews before we actually record this show. And we were talking to them. And I can't remember who I asked because we did 3 interviews already, and I can't remember who I asked, but did you see this coming? And none of us saw this coming, all year long. So it's amazing, and I guess we all need to ride this thing as long as we can.
That's right.
And
enjoy the ride.
Old Frosty stays around, and it's all good.
Moved up a little bit in the polls, but some of these bold projections still aren't very big on us. CBS Sports has that UCF Tennessee in the Birmingham Bowl, and ESPN has put out its bowl projections, UCF versus UCLA in the Frisco Bowl in Texas. And if I'm not mistaken, the Frisco Bowl is what used to be the Miami Beach Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Down in the Marlins Stadium. So,
I think
still got to earn some respect.
I think that it's going to be the Peach Bowl against somebody fairly good instead of those teams. All right, more clips. The person that I picked as my MVP, and I wanted to pick a defensive guy, and I honestly didn't want to pick Brandon Moore because I thought that was the one that people would pick, and I know we put out a poll and all that stuff.
I did post a poll after you asked on
Knightline because we were talking
game.
about it, and I wanted to pick somebody besides Brandon Moore and somebody that I think made a massive difference to this game.
As we record, there's still time left to vote, so if you haven't, get on to UCF_Knightline and vote. It's pinned to the top there. Who's your game MVP? We put Otis Anderson in there, Adrian Killens, Pat Jasinski, and Brandon Moore. Otis at 7%, Pat Jasinski 19%, Adrian Killens 33%, and your leader 41%, Brandon Moore, who had the heck of a hit, and then another interception.
Absolutely. You know what? Let's hear. We have a clip of that hit.
Great hit.
Lewis to Bonner. The freshman corner read that brilliantly.
A little reminiscent of a hit that happened a couple of years ago, and who's
William Stanback?
It was
against Rutgers.
It was that one, and then Stanback made that other one that the ball popped out. That was the one I thought that you were referencing.
Oh no, I meant the one where
it was Memphis where the punt returner or the kick returner that he lit up.
But so you weren't going to vote for Bam.
Yeah, I think that there's a guy that really is doing a heck of a lot on this defense, and that guy is Pat Jasinski, as far as I'm concerned. I think that he is a huge part of this defense, and maybe he's not getting the respect that he led the team in tackles.
14 tackles.
He's also playing one of those inside linebacker spots, and those guys are kind of like the quarterbacks of the defense that call the plays and stuff like that. So I just think that he's my pick personally. Very, very important guy, and he spied the quarterback most of the game and all that. So here's what he had to say after the game.
I think most of it was pretty much what we planned for. I think that's just how Navy runs. They're confident in what their capability is to execute their style of offense, and they make it tough. So they run the ball hard, and we just had to follow our keys to be able to out-execute them. It was awesome getting that adrenaline rush, feeling that it was all on us, at points, and I'm sure the offense felt the same way. It was good. That's going to help us moving forward, face a little bit of adversity, and it was nice. We expected that. It's Navy. We know they're tough guys. Obviously, these kids are going to be, defending our country when they're done with their time here. So it was awesome to get to play against guys like that, because they're tough dudes, and they're bringing everything they got.
They're tough dudes.
I love that quote.
He said it right there again. Those are the guys that are going to be defending our country later, and all that. So, and he said that he wasn't really surprised by anything. They didn't do anything that surprised anybody, except, I guess, those throws over the top a couple of times. And I guess
he talked about that, though, when he said that they were playing close up to the line to stop the run, and they got exposed a bit.
Yep. That's what happens with Navy.
And Nick Patty talked about it, a couple of times with us, that's what happens.
Yeah, and I was telling people the entire time while sitting at Burger U there, I was saying, this is what's going to happen, because, you could just, everybody was going crazy in there when that happened, and it seemed like, oh man, it's all falling apart. I'm like, no, just wait. They're going to go back to doing what they normally do. Nothing's, too exciting here. Lulls you to sleep almost. All right, so we got some other clips. I want to hear right here from Adrian Killens. And this was about the 79-yard run that he had in the game.
It was a great feeling. Our coaches put that scheme in practice, and it's been working in practice. The O-line did a great job blocking that, and Trylko honestly solidified that run. He cracked the guy and pressed him down, and I just finished the run. I know once I get across the edge, and I know no one's going to catch me, so I just finished it off the run.
Your coach called you a couple weeks ago, called you Dash, and then tonight he called you the Eraser. Is it good to know that they can depend on you guys, or for you, for those big plays?
Yeah, it's always good to depend on certain guys in football, period. So you got a lot of game changers on this offense. Otis Anderson, Trylko Smith, Gabe Davis, Mackenzie Milton, Jordan Akins. We have a lot of playmakers, so we just get the ball in their hands. We make big plays, and we expect big plays to be made, and we did a lot of those tonight.
By the way, Coach Frost earlier in the season referred to Adrian Killens as the Dash. This game he referred to him as the Eraser. I don't care what they call him. He helped us defeat the Black and Gold Banneret for our first win in Week 6 of UCF Fantasy. His 2 touchdowns combined with Shaquem Griffin's tackles. Too much for Trylko Smith and Pat Jasinski. They had Pat. We would have taken Pat if we had the opportunity to.
Absolutely.
We each pick an offense and defensive player. We got the win. We get the win.
Yeah, finally. I think that Adrian Killens should have the name the GOAT, personally. And here's a little exchange that happened there as well after the game. And I love this. I left the reporters' voices in there because it's funny.
Just called you the GOAT walking by. Did you fall on the GOAT, or what happened in that corner?
Yeah, I got hit out of bounds, and I seen the GOAT. I was trying to dodge it, but I did run into the GOAT.
Have you ever hit a GOAT before?
No, it's the first time being run into a GOAT.
When we're asking GOAT questions, we're done.
Sports Information Director Andy Seeley when we're asking GOAT questions because he ran out of bounds and collided with the mascot for Navy. Did they show that on TV?
They did.
Okay.
And yeah, the whole thing. And he was laying there. I thought the GOAT hurt him.
We weren't sure whether he landed on the water bowl that the GOAT was drinking.
Yeah, he kind of slipped, I think, in the water of the GOAT. But, that's why mascots like that should not be close to the field, I guess. What if... Memphis has a tiger. What if you run into your hand gets in the tiger cage or something?
They don't have him right on the sideline, the tiger.
He's
in a cage.
He's in the end zone.
He's in a cage?
He's in a cage, though.
Okay.
But your hand could go through into the cage.
My goodness.
Imagine if you put your hand out and you're catching a pass or something and you bang into that cage and your hand goes in there and the tiger bites your hand off. You never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Man.
People did not know that Navy had a goat as their mascot, and I was explaining to people at Burger U.
Billy.
Is it Billy the goat?
Billy.
That's funny. All right. Well, should we hear from Mackenzie Milton, do you think, here? Because he had a little bit of...
I'm not sure which clip you've pulled.
I got a bunch of clips, a couple clips.
He played Santa Claus, throwing that interception.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's hear that one real quick, I guess. This is a question that you ask him.
Honestly, I just made a poor throw. I kind of short-armed it a little. I think I was worried about a safety rolling over the top, so I kind of short-armed it and kind of threw it right to the guy, to be honest, but didn't really make it a spectacular interception. Kind of gave him a gift, but, I just got to look at the film, see what went wrong, but that was probably a bonehead one for me.
I like that, though. He's admitting it. It was a bonehead move. That's good. I wanted to play this other clip, though, from Mackenzie about just playing Navy and the experience in itself.
It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun coming to a hostile environment and getting a big win. Obviously, Navy's always going to keep battling, so we knew we'd probably have to fight to the end, which we did, and it was a big win for us.
Mackenzie on the season, 105 of 151, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a dark horse candidate, says Knightline, for Heisman. But I'll tell you what, while that may not necessarily happen in this 2017 season, Adrian Killens puts another name in the mix, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Going into next season?
Yeah. There's a couple players that could be on that list.
There may be some multiple campaigns.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens next year. This is a clip right here. It's Mackenzie talking about Adrian Killens.
Anytime our team needs a spark, he's been the guy since last year to now. He's a game changer. He's a heck of a player, and anytime we need a spark, he does it. He breaks off a 90-yard touchdown run. So that was a big, definitely, I'd say probably the biggest play of the game. So.
Those are our clips for today. We should name this segment Night Clips.
UCF tied with Ohio State, averaging 47.3 points per game. So in this game, 31-21, they only scored 31. But, of course, left points out on the field. In UCF's 63-21 win over East Carolina, Knights cheerleaders sure did do a lot of push-ups. May very well be the same thing, honestly, this weekend against Austin Peay. And one of the most interesting clips from that was seeing the male cheerleader getting tired.
Kind of running out of steam, yeah.
You caught up with UCF cheerleading coach Linda Gooch this week. She references senior Jay Holman, the tumbler, who has, years of experience doing this, and the freshman who gets tired there is Brandon Purnell. So it's interesting to think about what they have to do. You see him doing those push-ups, but a lot went into it before then.
And I talked to her. She's really cool. Gave me a great interview, and that will be during the week at some point that I'll put that up. But here's a clip from that.
Jay is a senior, and so he probably knows how to pace himself a little bit better. Brandon is a freshman, and Brandon had already done 21 push-ups. And then his next rotation, he was at 42 push-ups. And then this final rotation, he was at 63.
They better get some work in with strength and conditioning this week because they may be busy.
I actually talked to her about that, so you'll have to hear that. Seriously, we don't interview cheerleading coaches and stuff. We don't talk about cheerleading, but I thought that it was interesting.
It's interesting.
And I was kind of joking when I was, we should get a cheerleader to talk. Well, we got the coach, and it's been around for 32 years. So it was a cool interview.
So
you'll hear that later.
UCF.
Please check that out later this week.
Now, before we talk with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, UCF has racked in some big checks in the first few days since upping the ante for its Football Excellence Fund. UCF trying to raise at least $1.5 million more to bolster football, also known as paying head coach Scott Frost and his assistants more money. We've been busy with the Twitter poll questions. We asked, are you contributing? And 54% of our respondents say they will. So, Athletic Director Danny White would like your check, please.
Well, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to
Bake sales, lemonade, cookies,
whatever.
$100,000 checks.
Take some of the money that they're going to get from those helmets, those space helmets that they're auctioning off. Give that to Frost. Just put it under the door or something. Whatever. Just give him whatever he wants. I don't care what it is.
Oh, boy. We're going to talk about what went right and what needs some work. Former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel weighs in. Plus, we have some breaking recruiting news. Stay with us.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline and Knightline Postgame Live. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome to Inside the Huddle with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, brought to you by the Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. Waterford Lakes, 855 North Althea Trail, Orlando.
The beat goes on for UCF. Another win. UCF is 6-0. Best start in program history. Let's talk about it with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel. Kyle, this is the best win of the season so far, don't you think?
I think undoubtedly. Not only this season, but if you look over the past couple of seasons, you would think that this is probably one of the biggest wins with what's on the line. Obviously, we're undefeated, going on the road. At Navy, who hasn't lost at home or hadn't lost at home in a while, to be able to beat them up there against such a high-powered offense like they have, and to do it really when a lot of people in the country are starting to pay attention to us and watch us and see the success that we're having, I think that this is probably one of the bigger wins really in program history when you think about, where it was and what was kind of riding on that game.
Yeah, Kyle, I had said, I think during Postgame Live, that I thought that possibly this could be one of the biggest wins ever, and you posted that, I think, on your Facebook. What does it mean for this program to be 6-0? I mean, it's tremendous, and I want to compare it to that team with Blake Bortles and the Fiesta Bowl team, because I personally think that this team is better.
When I went back and watched some games from that season, that Fiesta Bowl year, and obviously, that win over Louisville was huge. We had a big comeback win with J.J. Wharton's the catch against Temple that we won in the last few minutes. We were right there against South Carolina, obviously, to win against Baylor. There were some special wins in that season, and I think we did it in a much different way. Style of offense, style of defense, style of coaching was very different. But when you look at how this team and the team this year scores points and really some guys that are stepping up big time, Micah Hughes is just turning out to be one of the most important people on our team. Yeah, I mean, he is in the top 3 or 4 guys that contributes every week in the kick return game and playing on defense. So, I think that win yesterday, Navy's a dadgum good football team. I mean, the loss that they had the week before against Memphis, they lose by 3 points, but they have 5 turnovers. To lose that game, I mean, that's a team that should have been ranked still, in my opinion. And really, the score didn't reflect how well we were able to control the football at the beginning of the game. And we talked about 2 weeks ago, penalties hurt us. Weren't able to convert in 4th and 1 on the goal line. But that win in general, by whatever the spread or the margin of victory was, is just phenomenal for this program. And I think this is the win that really starts to allow us to see some of the community really get behind us.
So with a 11-game schedule, the Georgia Tech game dashed by Hurricane Irma, this is sort of a halfway point, especially if you were to put UCF into the American Championship game. What have we learned about this team out of this game, and what do you think they still have to work on in the second half of the season?
Well, we think that we learned that we can be resilient. I mean, Navy is a team, you're going against the caliber of player in Navy who are just all-around focused individuals to do what they do in their academics on a day-to-day basis, to do what they do to prepare to serve our country in the future. I mean, those are elite individuals, and those are guys that are not going to give up. And for our team, it's tight there in the second half, only a 3-point lead. We saw some adversity with an interception from McKenzie. We weren't able to get in, like I just mentioned, from the 1-yard line earlier in the game. We showed that we're able to fight, stay focused, be resilient, not let the atmosphere take control of us, and really grind it out when the game was close. I think we're going to need that later in the season, especially against USF. And if we're able to get into a conference championship game and a big bowl game, I think that this win teaches us that we are not only just front runners, but when it gets tough on the road in a hostile environment, we're able to focus in and be successful. I think that we definitely need to continue to get better in the penalties area. I said a few weeks ago that I wasn't even sure with the amount of points that we were scoring if penalties were something that we should really, really worry about. But you can see in the first half we had some drive-killing penalties, and those type of penalties can come back to bite you. And I think that the game would probably have been very different in the second half as far as the margin, the score margin there wouldn't have been as close. I think we probably left 2 touchdowns on the field in the first half. But some of those points that we left off the board were because of penalties. So I think we really need to clean up the penalties. I think that we're seeing that we have a pretty special teams unit, no pun intended there. And we want to stay consistent in the kicking game. We haven't asked Matt Wright to have to be clutch for us yet this year, and he did make one yesterday, but also missed one. And so you want to see him stay poised and focused and continue to get better. But right now, there's a lot of really good things for this team.
Tell me what you thought about the play of Mackenzie Milton on this game. It was a little bit different because, number one, he went out at one point with a looked to be a hamstring injury, came back in on the next series, seemed to get everything going back together. But, this wasn't the normal UCF game as far as the season has gone so far. We didn't score 50 points. This was a much harder fought game.
That's right. And I think what you saw out of Navy is that they were playing a little bit soft on us. They were giving us. They were not going to allow us to beat them deep and over the top like we had seen our team do in the past with these zone reads that I always talk about. Probably getting tired of hearing it, but where we bring these safeties up and then throwing the ball deep down the field in one-on-one matchups over the top. Navy wasn't going to give that to us. So I think that I was happy with McKenzie. He picked his spots. He obviously had a tough turnover there that he'll learn from. I think he thought that that linebacker wasn't going to move with the wide receiver across the field, and he kind of folded underneath and was able to intercept that. You'd want to see him be more focused there. But with that being said, going out with a hamstring injury, being a guy that uses his legs to create plays for us, that took a little bit of his game away. You could tell that he was hampered by that. But I was very impressed with him realizing that. Sometimes guys get hurt. You look at Kelly Bryant for Clemson last week against Syracuse. He had a bummed ankle, and he tried to play the game as if he were 100% healthy. And when you're a quarterback, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are banged up sometimes that are at any position. You just kind of have to figure out, what you can still do and how you can work around a potential injury. And I think McKenzie did a pretty good job of that. He stayed poised. He helped us move the chains there late in the game. And he was able to lead the team, and that's what you want to see. So obviously he's going to make some mistakes. He's still really young, guys, only a sophomore, but has started a lot of games in his career. I guess it's got to be closer to 19 games now that he may have started. But nonetheless, I think that he's really improved. I also was really impressed, with Adrian Killens and being able to run inside the tackles. We know that he's a guy that can get outside, and we saw it again yesterday. Probably going to see some really cool YouTube videos of people. The nation has kind of started to notice Adrian and what he's doing. But to see him run between the tackles and get some tough yards and get into the end zone, same with Otis Anderson, I feel really, really good about our running game. And obviously we have a wide receiver core that seems to be continuing to get better and better. So if I was able to sit down and break down the film, we'd see a lot more, obviously. We'd see mechanics. We'd see, how are we audibling in certain situations? How are we directing run-pass options? There may be things that the naked eye will miss that McKenzie can continue to work on. But overall, managing the game, being a true leader, fighting through adversity, and really being a guy that the team could lean on was crucial. It was very scary when he went out because, Noah Verdal, being a true freshman, you could kind of see some of those nerves on his first play, or that snap goes right through his hands. I don't know that there's as much. I don't know that Noah can give us anywhere close right now to what McKenzie can. And it's funny saying that because going into fall camp, we weren't sure if McKenzie was even going to be the guy.
Speaking of McKenzie, there are some fans that I think are pulling for McKenzie to be added to the Heisman list. Do you think that is a, I guess I would say a thing that is possible of even happening? Do you think that he's that caliber with this offense being, one of the top offenses in the entire country? I know it's not just him. So do you think that that's a thing for him to even be included?
I mean, it's hard to make comparisons with when the Heisman is talked about, but if you look at Marcus Mariota and when he won the Heisman at Oregon, I don't think Marcus Mariota was the best, most polished QB in the country. He knew how to run that offense. Coach Frost called great games for him. I think if you see our staff continue to utilize McKenzie in the way that we are, and if he continues to throw touchdowns and limits his interceptions, there's no doubt that he's the most important person on our football team right now. And if we continue to stay unbeaten, you'd think that we're going to go 7-0 facing Austin Peay this week. If he continues this, I think he's got to be in the discussion. A quarterback of a top 25 team that is putting up the amount of yards that we are, that has a completion percentage, a 70% completion percentage as your average going into Game 6 is phenomenal. So I think there are a lot of things there where you could start to make a case for him. When you just look at him, as a fan, he's not the biggest presence and he's not extremely outspoken, but he's kind of speaking with his play right now. And I think you got to start considering, hey, if we go 7, 8, 9-0 all of a sudden, he may be a guy that's right there in that conversation.
You mentioned Austin Peay. That's the game that was scheduled after all of the shenanigans with the football schedule this season and the Hurricanes. How do you think the team approaches this week, and what are you looking for? They get out to a big lead. You want to see a lot of guys getting touches, don't you? And you mentioned McKenzie, little hamstring issue. You don't want to see him. How long should we expect to see him if everything's going right on offense?
A quarter or two. If we're able to get 21 points, 28 points up, the thing that I always kind of think about, and it was frustrating for me as a player, but in 2005 I was coming off a broken leg, and we were going into I think our 6th game of the season at Southern Miss, and it was going to be a blowout loss for us, and I was taking the mindset that I was going to be able to redshirt that year and be able to still play in 2008. And Coach O'Leary pulled my red shirt and put me in the game when we were down by 35 points. I ended up having a really good fourth quarter, throwing a couple of touchdowns, and it was able to build some confidence in me, but I was very frustrated that I had burned my red shirt basically in garbage time. And, Coach O'Leary brought me into his office that following Monday and, explained to me, hey, right now we're having a great season. We're in contention for a conference championship, and we're more than likely going to be able to potentially reach that. And I just can't have you coming in off a broken leg cold into a game with no snaps this season. And because I had an opportunity to get you snaps and make sure that down the road this season, if we need to call on you in one of these big-time games, I want to feel more comfortable that you've been able to get out there and play this year. And although it was very frustrating, very, very frustrating, I understood his logic. And I think that a game like Austin Peay is a game that you want to be able to use to get Noah Verdal more comfortable and to get him more reps, to allow him to have some success, throw the ball down the field, throw some different things at him, different play calls, expand his playbook to make sure that if McKenzie does go down with a hamstring, down the road, whether it's against Temple or whether it's against, South Florida, you want to make sure that he's had some meaningful reps. And I think that this is a game you can do that. So if we can get him in earlier than later, I think that's going to be better for this football team.
No, you've been pretty busy there at the Little Greek. Yeah. What's been going on there, and what's going on with the Little Greek?
Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were doing one of these talks, and I was sitting in the parking lot out at our location in Winter Garden. And tonight, we're having this talk again, and I'm back at the Winter Garden location, sitting out in the parking lot. We've just been so ridiculously busy here, but we're so thankful for the support that this community in West Orlando, Claremont, Winter Garden, Windermere has supported us so well. We're so thankful for that. And then we have another location right now. We have a letter of intent out on a site over in the Colonial Town Center near Fashion Square behind Total Wine. So we're excited to potentially be moving into that part of town, as well as a letter of intent out on a site on Sand Lake Road in the Dr. Phillips area. So we're continuing to expand, continuing to sell franchise licenses. And so if there is anybody out there, the momentum is strong right now for us. And I know that there are plenty of Knight fans that I've talked to out here at Winter Garden that are coming in and supporting us and chatting with me, more so than I see over in our Waterford Lakes location. So I'm just very, very thankful to this community for supporting us and liking our food, and we hope that we can continue to expand and open. We've set our number now. We had it between 15 and 18. I think we see that this market can probably hold 22 to 24 that we can hopefully get open in the next 5 years. So it's exciting.
Awesome. Well, I am going to lobby you for one in the Sanford, Lake Mary area, and I'm also lobbying you for one down on Orange Avenue someplace in downtown Orlando around the hospital, maybe.
I can tell you this: we will be. We have a group of guys that's purchasing potentially 5 licenses from us, in their first location they want to do up on Lake Mary Boulevard.
Awesome.
So that's more up there in your neck of the woods. We're hoping that they're going to develop Seminole County for us, but we're also looking for one down in that kind of Winter Park, Florida Hospital area in the future. So within a year or so, hopefully.
Right on.
But eventually, you'll be able to find us everywhere.
Alrighty, yeah, I know we will. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We look forward to it every week talking to you.
You're welcome, guys. And I'm just 2 years ago, we didn't win a game. We had a ton to talk about every week and where we were struggling. Last year, we were kind of middle of the road and had a ton to talk about. It's funny how we're winning more and we're more successful, and it's harder to find things to evaluate and analyze in a season where there's so much success compared to a season where we're struggling. But it's certainly a lot of fun, and I'm a UCF fan, so I'm still a little bit nervous about the rest of the season, but you try not to get your hopes up too high, but I'm starting to feel more comfortable about this team, this coaching staff, and what our expectations can be for ourselves.
What's on your mind? We answer your questions on Ask Knightline. Nick Patty swings by, and Juan Toribio joins us from Knights 24/7 with recruiting news. Back in a bit.
You've heard us talk about the great food at our good friend Kyle Israel's restaurant, The Little Greek Fresh Grill. The Little Greek now has franchises available. Please call 407-697-2272. That's 407-697-2272 to see what The Little Greek can do for you. Also check out The Little Greek's newest location at 3131 Daniels Road, Suite 104, Winter Garden, Florida. The Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous.
You know why you're so tired?
No.
Because Knightline is pushing content out all week. You got your interview with Linda Gooch. We've got a really strong segment, kind of a half season in review, plus a deep dive into recruiting with Juan Toribio of Knights 24/7, which he's a great follow on Twitter, great website. For tonight's purposes, we spoke with him. UCF landed a pretty big name, pretty good commitment.
Absolutely.
So that's some pretty good news to chew on.
Following up the 6-0 start from yesterday, UCF landed a 3-star commit, 4-star depending on the website you look at. Eric Gilliard, he's a linebacker from Trinity Christian out of Jacksonville.
All right, that will be coming up later in the week as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
There's a couple things.
How about that?
Got a lot of stuff this week.
Pretty strong recruit. Ask Knightline time, answering your questions, posted on Facebook or via Twitter. Golden Knight II on Twitter. He's upset, by the way. 2 things needing correction. Secondary was exposed. Do you agree with that?
No.
They need to fix it in the penalties. They need to be addressed. It cost us 14 points. I'm with them 100% on the penalties. Drives me up a wall.
Yeah.
You're not worried about the secondary?
I don't think that the secondary was exposed. I just think that for the Navy game, you're concentrating on the run because that's what they do 99.9% of the time. The other 1 point, they throw the ball. That's the way Navy works. That's what they do. No. No.
All right. Daniel, a.k.a. DGYN14 on Twitter. Bam Moore played the best game of his young career. Does he or Neville Clark get the start next week? Assume both will get playing time.
I don't know about Neville Clark.
I think he's going to have to earn it.
Absolutely. He should have to earn it because if you're suspended, you shouldn't just come back. Any team that I've ever been on and somebody gets suspended, they don't just come back and get their spot unless they are the starting quarterback, the starting running back, something like that. So
glad to have him back, though.
Yeah.
While these guys have made strides, there's still some areas there of concern.
But the guys that have been here have worked very hard to get where they're at. They've worked very hard to get where they're at in this season. So I don't think that he should get his spot back right away. Throw him in there during the nickel or something, when we play another defense.
Garrett, a.k.a. Strength of Spear on Twitter, who and what will actually stop this team?
I don't think anybody stops this team.
Injuries could hurt us.
Yeah.
The penalties could still be a problem.
I don't think any team stops us. I think we stop ourselves.
Yeah, I think there's some consensus
if that
with
happens.
That. Which kind of dovetails into this. Tim on Facebook, do you think we have a typical UCF moment coming to us at this during this season? There was a lengthier paragraph where he said there's always these moments, and I still feel that way, where I'm waiting for something bad to happen, and that hasn't been the case.
Well,
so he's asking, does that happen in a possible cold weather game at Temple in November? Does it happen on the road at SMU?
I would say maybe the culture has changed. Maybe the culture has changed where we won't have those moments anymore because of Scott Frost. Maybe Scott Frost has changed the culture so much that won't be happening this year. It happened last year. The moment was last year, I think, in the bowl game.
Temple game when they let the lead get away.
Yeah,
that was the Houston game where they let the lead get away.
Right.
Those were the typical UCF moments.
And the bowl game of just throwing an egg out there, laying an egg, I should say.
Brad on Facebook
throwing an egg, laying an egg.
Brad on Facebook, you attribute this crowd at the Navy game to the area, or you think fans are starting to travel? Certainly, the area had an impact. What I responded to Brad on Facebook saying is that I think that Knight fans travel pretty well for a lot of these games. There's always a good contingent, and I think it's a good place that you can fly into, you can drive to from the Northeast. Fans are already talking about, and I think we've talked about this, right? Maybe possible Knightline on the road to North Carolina.
We're going next year.
So that's kind of a game that can draw fans.
Absolutely. I think the more that this team wins, the more this team puts a quality product on the field, the more people that travel.
Good questions, everybody. Keep them coming. Awesome. And I like when people thank us for talking about their questions. So thank you for that.
Cool.
We dig deeper into UCF's win over Navy just ahead. We are in the red zone with Nick Patty. We are also talking about UCF's new basketball court in News and Notes. Knight Nation, now that the football season has started, you're going to need all the tailgating supplies and clothing for the rest of the season. And the best place to get all of your favorite Knight stuff is Fan Addicts. Please go to our website, UCFKnightlinePodcast.com. Click the Fan Addicts logo to find the best selection and best prices for everything you need.
Welcome to Inside the Red Zone with Nick, the Wild Knight Patty.
Solid analysis last week from our next guest, who called Navy's triple option Novocaine. It just lulls you to sleep. We are joined now by former Knights quarterback Nick Patty, who is in the red zone. Nick, you called it. That is exactly what Navy was like to watch during that game.
Yeah, it's sort of know what you're getting with them on a week-to-week basis. They showed up just Saturday like they normally do, and tough to stop, tough to kind of watch for a whole game. Sort of gets boring, if you will, but there's obviously nothing boring about how efficient they are. They did a really good job against this hard-nosed team, well-fought game, and Knights came out on top, so that's great. But it's obviously a pretty potent offense.
Let me ask you a couple hypotheticals. We don't get the Adrian Killen 79-yard touchdown run then. What may happen there? Or if we don't get the Bam Moore play, what may happen? Do you think those were the big turning points in the game? It may have tipped in Navy's favor based on the way the game was flowing?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, plays like that, you hear it often. It's one play difference, 2 plays difference, and the game can go another way. I think this is a perfect example of that. When you're good teams and you're trying to solidify yourself the way we are right now, these are the kind of games that define your season. And for them, I know as a team in the locker room, those guys, in looking for an identity, looking to define who they are and how good they are, and really proving themselves in the national stage. To have those 1 or 2 plays is great because, it gives them a chance to say, okay, we're finally in a fight with a good team, and we answer the bell. And they did, and they got those couple of plays. They handled their business, and it's it's always those 3 or 4 plays you look back and say, man, those are the turning points in the game. And I think every football game that's whether it's close or not, you can go back and find those plays that you say there's not that many that if they went a different way, the game could have looked completely different. And so for us, it was those 2 plays really, and I think you can also look back and say, okay, the Bam turnover was huge. Obviously, you get an 80-yard touchdown, that's gigantic. But you can also say that when, after maybe McKenzie threw that late pick, answering the bell on the other side after that pick is also a turning point in that game. That's also a defining moment for the team. And so moving forward, to have a couple of things go your way is always good for momentum, and it's always good for those guys to continue to build. But sure, I'm thankful that we got those couple of plays, so that's good.
Absolutely. 6-0 is a big deal for UCF. How big of a deal do you think it is?
It's huge. I mean, obviously, you've seen the headlines that this is the first time in school history we've been 6-0, and and for any season to be undefeated at any point is awesome. But to be more than halfway through this season, especially how it's gone, I think even to be undefeated is huge in itself. But to get off to the start that we got onto, with some of the scheduling mishaps and canceling games, adding games, switching games around, to be 6-0 and to persevere through that, and to be growing like we are, performing like we are, having people step up, continuing to get better, continuing to put up a ton of yards, continuing to have more and more people contributing, to be 6-0 at this point, I think is just astronomical for this program moving forward. Not only for this year, it's huge. It's going to be an awesome year regardless. But moving forward in the future for UCF, this season is going to be such a springboard, I think, into a consistency for this program. And I can't say enough about how huge being 6-0 at this point is.
Obviously, UCF is hard to stop. And hypothetically, what would it take to stop UCF? I mean, we're on a huge roll as far as the offense especially, and putting up numbers that are ridiculous. But what could stop UCF?
I think there's a few things that a team should have to focus on when they play UCF. And, really talking about more the style of football that UCF plays, but specifically them. If you look at our stats throughout this year, and we could just break down this past week, for instance, our third down efficiency. It's been pretty good throughout the year. I think Saturday we were 8 for 13 on third downs, which is great because you're keeping drives going, you're moving the chains. But also time possession. Navy, you can see when there's a team that can hold the ball and keep our offense off the field, obviously we're not putting up as many points. We've been good scoring on the defensive side of the ball, but we're obviously not putting up as many points as our offense is. And so if a team can hold the ball against UCF and stop us on third down, those are 2 huge things to keeping it close and giving yourself a chance against the Knights. A team like UCF, their offense is based on sustaining drives. You don't want to have 3 and outs, keep your defense on the field too much, because that's when it begins to stack up. You got 3 and outs, and your defense is back out there, and then another 3 and out, and you're not creating any momentum. Defense is getting tired. So I think we saw that against Navy a little bit as they held the ball, and sustained those drives, and our defense was out there, and our offense was, not being able to create a rhythm. Our offense wasn't being able to create points. You saw how that can affect, the rhythm of the Knights. We didn't see their typical, offense out there. We didn't get a typical game like we've gotten this year. The Knights, however, are playing good enough to be able to combat that. We're playing good enough to be able to still create some points on defense. And when our offense had the ball, they took advantage of the time that they did get. And so, I think those are the 2 things you got to think about when you're playing those guys. Try to hold on to the ball and win the time possession battle as best you can and stop us on third down.
What have you, in these 6 games, not necessarily seen us improve on enough? What are some? I don't want to be overly critical of a 6-0 team that's moving up in the polls, but what are some Achilles heels in there? What areas do they need to really make strides in over these next couple of games?
Sure, I think that's been tough. I think I'd like to. It's hard to say this after Navy, but just kind of looking overall this season, I'd like to still see us get a little more stingy in the defense secondary against pass heavy teams. We've done well, and you said it's hard to kind of be critical at this point because we've done so well in the overall grand scheme of things. But, I'd just like to see us get a little more stingy on the defensive secondary, although those guys have looked good and they look physical. And then on offense, just, continue to get first downs, get a lot of first downs and sustain drives, win the time possession battle. And I think, sort of one thing I'd like to see them be consistent at, and not maybe a change overall, but just continue to not turn the ball over. We haven't had a whole lot of turnovers or dumb mistakes, and I think moving forward, maybe not be critical, but just something that if they can sustain this, that would have us have some sustained success, is to not turn the ball over. McKenzie to not throw a whole lot of interceptions. We haven't had a whole lot of fumbles lost this year, which has been huge. So I think moving forward, the one thing they need to think about is just holding on to the ball, and we'll continue to score a lot of points if that's the case.
Well, we are in Austin Peay Week, a game that we never anticipated having, and you don't want to disrespect anyone or take anyone lightly, but when you had a game of this nature on the schedule during your playing days, how do you prepare for that? Is it regular practice? How do you get the team focused on a game like this? And then when you get to Saturday, say you get out to a lead, what's the game plan? You're trying to get as many guys into the game as possible, and how long might you anticipate seeing most of the starters in this game?
It's a different week. People, I think any coach you hear talk about a week like this, you hear the cliche of, it's another week for us. We're going to give them everything we've got. They deserve all our respect, et cetera. I think we all anticipate hearing that from the coaches. Inevitably, it's human nature to say, okay, we're going to do our normal preparation, but at the same point, we're going to maybe put a little emphasis on SMU this week. We're going to get some young guys some experience, and maybe not even anticipate getting them. I'm sure they all anticipate them playing in the game, but maybe in practice, you get to choose a little more reps. You mix in some, guys that are maybe redshirting. You maybe get them some reps in some live practice stuff instead of on the scout team, so you can mix it up. And I think another thing to think about too is we with the shake-up in schedule, we lost our bye week. And I'm not saying this is a bye week by any stretch, and then they can't take Austin Peay lightly. Like you said, an opponent's an opponent, and you should respect everyone the same. However, with not having a bye week, this may be a week to just to anticipate saying, okay, as soon as we feel comfortable, let's get these guys some rest. Let's get Adrian Killing some rest. Let's get McKenzie out of there. Traquan Smith, those guys, Jemias Pittman, all those guys that aren't going to be able to necessarily benefit from a bye week, although we had some weeks off early in the season. Now that we've had some games in a row, we're not going to necessarily be able to rest our legs as much. This might be a game where they say, okay, as soon as we feel like we can, let's pull them. Whereas if you were playing in East Carolina or an SMU, you'd say we're not going to pull anyone until at least the fourth quarter, And so I don't know if that I would predict saying halftime, but I think as soon as they feel they can, this would be a week that Coach Frost and those guys would anticipate giving those guys a little rest when they can.
These teams that people aren't familiar with are not teams that you should take lightly, though. We've seen this before. I think you might remember a game against Furman that was pretty ugly. You just can't overlook these. This team is 5-3. That's pretty much all I know about them. But that in one game they did score 69 points, albeit it was against Moore State. So
no, you're absolutely right. And I remember that firsthand. I mean, that's one game I'll never forget, is that Furman game, and it's that, obviously that season was one to forget, but at the same time, there's no one in the country, that you can line up against and take lightly, because we see it in college football every week, maybe not on this stage, but even you see an LSU and a Troy game, you see teams that there's no reason should lose to certain teams, and this is a perfect week for that, for the Knights, and they got to give it everything they have, and not only on the physical level, but on a mental level. And as much as they can maybe take advantage of this week as a team moving forward and rest and all that stuff, they can also take advantage of this week in building their discipline in their mind and building that foundation that they are going to impose their will on every opponent, no matter who it is. And so it's a big week. I mean, I think it's just going to be a solid week for them to be able to take advantage of a lot of things on a lot of different levels as a team, not just winning another game, but building that discipline, building that strength, and so we'll see. But I hope they take advantage of it.
All righty, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us again. We look forward to talking to you next week as well. Have a good week, and go Knights.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. We'll talk next week.
Now time for a look around the American featuring C. Austin Cox.
I'm C. Austin Cox from the AAC Daily, and this is your weekly wrap-up for the American Athletic Conference. Both remaining undefeated teams from the American saw action with USF and UCF facing tough challenges, but coming out on the other side unscathed while rewriting history in the process. The Bulls extended their win streak to 12 games, currently the longest streak in the nation, and managed to set an NCAA scoring milestone in the process. The Bulls held off Tulane 34-28 to score at least 30 points for the 24th straight game, setting an NCAA record in the AP poll era of college football that dates back to 1936. On the other end of I-4, the excitement in Orlando continues to grow as UCF reached the 6-0 mark for the first time in program history as the Knights became the first American Athletic Conference team to march into Annapolis and walk out with a regular season victory at Navy. Running back Adrian Killians Jr. rushed for 122 yards and 2 TDs, while the UCF defense notched 3 takeaways en route to the 31-21 win over the Midshipmen. Memphis, meanwhile, climbed to the top of the AAC West Division, setting itself apart from the rest of the pack as the Tigers rallied from 17 down at halftime to record a 42-38 road win at Houston Thursday night. The Cougars held a 31-14 lead late in the third quarter, but the Tigers scored touchdowns on 6 straight second-half possessions to improve to 6-1 overall and 3-1 in the American. SMU may still have something to say about the West Division title as the Mustangs improved to 2-1 in conference play and 5-2 overall after getting a 31-28 win in overtime at Cincinnati, where Ben Hicks threw for 295 yards and 2 touchdowns. The win puts the Ponies just a half game back behind the Memphis Tigers in the West Division standings. Randy Edsall said earlier this season that his team is still learning to win, and it looks like it may have figured out how to, as UConn picked up back-to-back wins for the first time this season, with the Huskies holding off Tulsa's comeback attempt to get a 20-14 win against the Golden Hurricane. Bryant Sharefs had a big day, throwing for 372 yards and a touchdown, while the UConn defense registered 6 sacks and held the Tulsa Golden Hurricane scoreless through 3 quarters of play. ECU made progress as the Pirates had their best performance of the season in a 33-17 win against BYU at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. Gardner Minshew threw for 2 TDs in the second half in a relief effort off the bench. Kicker Jake Verity kicked 4 field goals for the Pirates, who scored on 7 of their 11 plays. As for the other teams stepping out of conference play, the Temple Owls dropped a heartbreaker to Army in a 31-28 overtime loss. Attention in the American is also turning to the hardwood, with the USA Today men's basketball poll coming out this past week and placing 2 AAC teams in the top 25, with new member Wichita State coming in at number 8 and Cincinnati taking the number 13 spot. In addition, men's basketball players from Cincinnati and Temple were added to the Karl Malone watch list, which is presented to the nation's top power forward at the conclusion of each season. UCF's Taco Fall also got national preseason recognition, being named to the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar watch list to start the 2017-18 campaign. I'm C. Austin Cox, and that's what's happening around the American Athletic Conference. For more news about the American, you can catch me on the AAC Daily, airing Monday through Friday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Central on BCSNN, iTunes, Spreaker, and the iHeartRadio app every weekday. Now back to Orlando with your host, Andrew and Trace on UCF Knightline.
All right, Knights in the pros. Blake Bortles, Jacksonville shuts out Indy 27-0, and Blake goes 18 of 26 for 330 yards and a touchdown. Finally happening for him. Latavius Murray, the Minnesota back, picks up 113 yards on 18 carries and scores in the Vikings' 24-16 win over Baltimore. And Shaquille Griffin, 3 tackles. He started, by the way, for Seattle against the New York Giants. 24-7 was the score on that one.
Knightline Planner taking a look at the week ahead. Men's golf continues in the Tavistock Invitational in Orlando, October 23 and 24. Men's soccer welcomes Florida Atlantic on the 24th. First kick 7 at UCF Soccer Complex. Women's golf opens in the Landfall Tradition on the 27th. Now, how about this? Tough choices. Friday night at UCF. Volley Bowl 10 features Wichita State, the new arrival in the American, against the Knights at the venue at 7. Just outside the venue, women's soccer, number 7th ranked, takes on the Cows. War on I-4 rivalry points are up for grabs, as is the conference title.
Oh, wow.
Final regular season game. Cross country is in the American Championship on the 28th in Philadelphia. Men's soccer welcomes Temple. Now, the schedule says this is 7 o'clock Saturday, UCF Soccer Complex. Football game starts at 5. They're playing that soccer game at the same time?
Oh, that's
I haven't
weird,
seen
yeah.
any change yet on the website. Sunday the 29th, Men's Golf Open's playing the Florida Gulf Coast Invitational. Rowing competes in the Princeton Chase in New Jersey, and volleyball has a noon match at the venue against Memphis.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. Women's soccer 4-1 winners over Temple on Sunday and 2-0 victor over UConn Thursday. UCF is number 7 in the United Soccer Coaches Poll and is 12-1-1 overall, 7-0-1 in the American.
Oh, and for all the doings, Friday against the Cows. You haven't played the Cow, by the way.
Man.
Ran into Kevin Reese in Annapolis, by the way.
That wasn't it, but that was me doing it. So.
Volleyball gets the 3-1 win at Tulane Sunday. Friday, the Knights lost 3-1 in Houston. UCF 4-6 in the American. Bit of a struggle this year, 11-11 overall. Head coach Todd Dagenet announced 2 new additions to the 2017 Ring of Honor. Hard to believe they weren't even already in there. Former head coaches Lucy McDaniel and Laura Smith, they'll be honored at the November 12th home match. McDaniel led the Knights to a national championship in 1978. That team had a 55-0 record. Both McDaniel and Smith are already in the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame.
Men's soccer, sophomore Cal Jennings with 2 goals and an assist as UCF wins 3-2 at 22-ranked UConn. UCF is 3-2-1 in the American and 4-5-2 overall. UCF senior Matthias Pizzolo, the American Offensive Player of the Week.
Men's basketball picked 3rd in the American by the league's coaches. Redshirt junior B.J. Taylor gets a nod on the first team. Highway robbery, I tell you. Taco Fall makes 2nd team all-conference list.
That's
By the way,
crazy.
he's the defending American Defensive Player of the Year, and he's not on the first team Media Day Tuesday.
I don't get it. Women's basketball picked 4th in the American by the league's coaches, the highest the Knights have ever been projected since joining the American. All-conference selection senior Elia Gregory.
Speaking of basketball, a new-look court at the arena. Orlando's hometown team will be sporting Lake Eola, roller coasters, palm trees. We asked you in a Twitter poll, do you like UCF's new court design? 67% of you said yes. I say not so much.
I like it. Men's golf starts play at the Tavistock Invitational in Orlando.
New look UCF license plate. Seeing it more and more. Do you have yours? You have one?
I don't have one.
I don't
the
have
wife
one yet.
does, though.
Top 5 counties in sales: Orange, Seminole, Brevard, Broward, Volusia. What's going on, Miami-Dade and Polk? Get off the schneid there and start buying them.
Tampa needs to buy some, too.
Some Hillsborough and Pinellas would be nice.
They'll be buying some after we beat them on Black Friday. And finally, the official groundbreaking ceremony for the expansion of the UCF baseball complex takes place Saturday, October 28th at 2 p.m., featuring the biggest donor, John Giuliano, who's ponied up $1.5 million toward the $3 million project.
A lot going on Saturday. You've got that. You've got the football game. UCF looking to move to 7-0. And, of course, another edition of Knightline. Post-game live at Burger U.
Absolutely. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Go Knights.
Charge on.
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. B-S-E-T-O-R-Y. Tonight our Knights will shine.